Welcome back, everybody, to True Talk with TruMotion, where a couple of guys talk about how to make the world a better place and hopefully make your day a little bit better in the process. My name is Mark, followed by my co-host Stephen. Let's get things kicked off. Well, first off, let's just kind of do a real quick recap of the week. Stephen, how's your week been?
Oh, my week's been pretty good. I think, well, it was my week to, in the script of life, get a little under the weather. So I lost my voice throughout the week, which was pretty tough. But it didn't stop me. I still was able to do a whole bunch of stuff. Still managed to finish one of my books that I was reading, and that was always a fun time. It's always fun to finish a project.
Yeah, absolutely. And you even got a job because your voice sounded a little bit more gravelier than normal, correct?
Um, no, they liked the natural graveliness of my voice, um, but they heard something of mine out there that I recorded in December.
Okay.
So I guess it must have been extra gravelly back then too,
Yeah,
with the
apparently.
holidays and stuff. But yeah, I did get my first advertising job too.
No, I know that was really cool. I mean, that's like
Very
kudos to
excited.
you. That's awesome, man. Especially for only really being in the game for what, less than 6 months?
Less than, yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You're killing it.
Thank you, sir. How was your week?
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, you're pretty typical average week. Like I said, last week being sick and it being every day kind of being a struggle. It was nice to come on in and like feel refreshed, feel renewed, not have to worry about like anything except coming in and teaching, and that's always a good feeling. So that's always a really good feeling. But yeah, no, it's a great week. I mean, tomorrow we got our 5-year dinner.
Oh, whoop, whoop.
That's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be taking all the students that are 5 years plus out to a restaurant called Tucano's, which is a Brazilian steakhouse. So that's always a lot of fun to kind of gather together and see all those students that have been around for 5 years plus. So it's one of the highlights of the year, and it happens to start at the beginning of the year. So that's always a lot of fun. So, but yeah, no, it's been a really good week. It's fun. Yeah, like I said, it's fun kind of seeing all the students. And last week, everybody was kind of, I don't know, maybe it's just because I was under the weather. Just everybody kind of seemed like everybody was on one in terms of like behavior and following directions and listening and all that stuff. And then we got this week, and it was like night and day difference. Like everybody was kind of like on top of their game as far as the little kids go. So that was really good to see and exciting to see as well. But now let's get this thing get going. So this week's top 5 is top 5 movie villains. So top 5 movie villains. Do you want me to go first, or you want to go first?
You can start this one.
Okay, so my top 5 movie villains. Can call them villains, you can call them bad guys, whatever you want. Obviously, you got to go with Darth Vader. Darth Vader's probably at the top of everybody's list on top 5 bad guys. Then I would have to say the Joker would be next. Then Hans Gruber. Can't have a bad guys list without Hans Gruber.
That's right.
And then I would say Sauron from Lord of the Rings. He's obviously a big baddie. And then the last one, who do I want my last one to be? Movie villains. What are some good movie villains? I would probably say Thanos.
Okay.
Thanos will be my last one. Yeah,
Interesting.
that's who I. Granted, you could probably just go down the list with all like movie character, or like comic book character movie
Right.
villains. I tried not to. I tried to hit like at least every genre. I know I didn't really get Halloween stuff in there. Jason Voorhees was really close to my list, but I thought I'd keep it more on the realistic realm.
Interesting.
By saying realistic, I mean I've got characters like Thanos and Sauron.
Yeah, that's super realistic.
Yeah, exactly. It's realistic for me.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
All right, so who you got?
Oh, tough list. Mostly because I was unprepared. again.
I gave him like 20 minutes. Come on.
Okay, well, top of my list when it comes to movie villains, I think, I'm gonna have to go with, and this isn't in any particular order, but
No.
I've also have Joker.
Okay.
I also have, uh, well, I don't actually have any others from your list. I have General Zod from Superman.
General Zod, that's a good one.
I have Megatron from the Transformers.
Oh, yeah, that's a really good
And
one.
I just saw Rise of Beasts actually, and the Megatron wasn't in that one, but there was another villain Transformer that
What do they call him again? Scabe, Scab, Scar,
Terracons or Skarn
Skarn.
or yeah, not Skarn.
Yeah, they call him
yikes.
Skarn.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, but he was voiced by Peter Dinklage, which is interesting. I didn't
Really?
Yeah, and that was pretty cool.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
I did not. I couldn't hear
I
it.
got a little like ear trigger. I'm like, oh, that sounds familiar. Then I looked it up, and it was like it was voiced by Peter Dinklage.
That is cool.
That guy, that if you call it Decepticon, but that was pretty cool. But I still think Megatron's the OG.
I agree. I would go Megatron over the other one.
Megatron's the OG. Then I'm going to go with Bane, also from the Batman.
Ah, Bane. Yeah.
That's a good one. And then I'm going to go with, what's the one from, it's from the Jigsaw movies. I'm going to go with Jigsaw. Yeah. That's one.
Damn, that's a strong list.
I think I got one more. Then with that one, not sure.
You never go wrong with like Hannibal Lecter.
I know. Hannibal Lecter is an insane villain.
I almost went with Kaiser Soze.
Okay.
From The Usual Suspects.
Okay. I think I'm gonna have to go with Hans Gruber as well.
Yeah, can't go wrong with Hans Gruber.
It's hard to have a villain list without Hans Gruber in there.
I agree. He plays it off so nice. Granted, I almost put like Voldemort on there.
Yeah.
Almost put.
We're gonna just come up with a whole bunch of them.
Yeah. No, that's the problem. You make a top 5 list, and then you're like, I'm going to need another top 5 list just to back up my first top 5 list. So, yeah, like honestly, you could probably almost put any Batman villain on there. You're like, there's what was the first one? It was
Scarecrow.
Ra's al Ghul. Mm-hmm. He's another good one. I liked Megatron. That was a good pick. Megatron was a good pick. You could do like Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers. Yeah, it's funny how Loki, even though like is Loki really a bad guy now? Yeah,
get that crowd.
Yeah, that honestly without going off too much on a tangent, it's like I don't understand how we're changing all of the traditional bad guys into good guys now.
Right.
It's like I understand people can change, blah 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 blah, but like traditionally these horrible people are now quote unquote good guys.
And to be fair, that's the reasoning why Darth Vader isn't on my list, because Darth Vader redeemed himself at the end.
That is true. That is very, very true.
But if you look at 4 and 5, Darth Vader, merciless killer, super bad guy.
Between the end of 3 and the
so
the end of
it's fair, but also I see the redeeming qualities.
Yeah, maybe I should have put Palpatine on there or something, or Darth Maul.
Needs more screen time.
Yeah, well, in the movies, yeah, but if you ever watch like the cartoons,
I've seen the cartoons, yeah.
Huge character.
Yep.
Yeah, huge character. Yeah, he was a pretty bad guy. Thrawn.
Mm-hmm.
Thrawn's a super bad guy.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm just kind of tired of seeing like all of these traditional bad guys getting turned around and be like, oh, they had a rough childhood.
They get their own spin-off.
Oh, good Lord. Like Cruella de Vil.
Yep.
It's like she's a good now. She's like a good guy.
What?
Like people like her. She was the most awful villainous person on the face of the planet. She
Exactly.
wanted to skin
What's
puppies.
yeah, that one? Correct. Okay, okay. So spin off from this Disney villains, Cruella, and then the one from Hunchback. What's that guy's name?
I've never seen
You've
Hunchback.
never seen Hunchback?
No,
That is like known on online as one of the scariest Disney villains.
really.
Yeah,
I should watch it.
you should watch it. The first Hunchback,
I've never watched the Hunchback of
Notre Dame.
yeah, or at least the cartoon or the Disney cartoon. I think of good Disney. Gosh, shoot, you could do Disney villains like
Next week, let's save it for next week.
Yeah, okay, like Jafar.
Yep.
Jafar would be a good one.
See, we're spinning off.
Yeah.
We've got a show to do.
That's true. Okay, so those are our top five movie villains. Let us know if our top five is anywhere close to your top five in the comments. But now let's get on to some questions. The questions for this week is question number one: does age come into play when it comes to training? Now that's a loaded question. Okay, does age come into play when it comes to training? Yes and no. Okay, in my opinion, it only comes into play when it like physically limits you or mentally limits you. So like let's talk 3-year-olds. Okay. Can a 3-year-old train? Yeah, we can teach 3-year-olds. Can all 3-year-olds train? No, not all 3-year-olds can train. Can someone in their 80s train? Yeah, I taught a guy that was 86. Can all 80-year-olds train? No. So can it limit you? Yes. Should it limit you? Not really, because as long as you can listen and pay attention, I think you can do. We can work with just about anything. So, I mean, you physically may not be able to do everything you used to do, or you physically may not be able to do things very high or fast.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of irrelevant at that stage. It's is your body moving? Are you staying active? Are you staying loose? Like all that kind of stuff. So, like, what's your take on it?
I'm all along the same path. Like the most important part of training is communication, right? You have to be able to listen and to take instructions well, which means you have to have that awareness, and you have to be able to take awareness from someone who might not be your parents, right? You have to might be able to listen to someone else, but then you also have to be able to communicate it well. And so, if people are afraid of getting hurt because they might be too old or in a particular physical state, then it really just comes down to communication. It's knowing what you are capable of and communicating that to your partner at the time.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, because I've had a number of people that are like, "Oh, I've got a broken arm. I can't train." Well, yeah, you can still train. Like, do you have a cast on? Be like, okay, now you need to be more worried about hurting your partner, not your partner hurting you.
You have a club now.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, communication I think is a huge part of it, and more so than anything, like when you're dealing with older people, the willingness to train.
Yeah.
Like, do you want to? Because if you want to, yeah, then you can absolutely do nothing. Physically, nothing should be able to get in your way.
Right.
Like, will you be, like I said, be able to go as fast and as hard and kick as high as everybody else? Maybe not at first, but that's not the point. You know, the point is to learn something, stay active, keep your body moving, keep your mind active, all that stuff. Now, when it comes to little kids, the willingness to try and learn.
Right.
If they're willing to try, then we can work with that. If they're not even willing to try, then there's not much we can do. It's not like we can force a kid to throw a kick.
Right.
It's like you can threaten them and like bribe them all you want, but if they're not going to do it, they're not going to do it. So if they're willing to try the training, yeah, I mean, we can definitely work with that. So the answer to the question is both yes and no, but it's more so the individual if you're going to let that come into play. So that would be the question for does age come into play when it comes to training? Next question is a really good one. It's what do you do when you plateau in your training. Now, this is very common for most students around the rank of blue belt. That's dubbed the blue belt blues. Okay, so at this time, most students have been training anywhere from, maybe 6 months to a year, and they have been progressing relatively quickly, meaning like testing once a month or once every other month, but testing within one every 3 months at a time. Okay. Then all of a sudden they get to blue belt and the testing process, I don't want to say slows down, but it comes to like almost a screeching halt. It gets really slow. One is because we don't offer advanced tests every month. Okay. We offer like 3 or 4 a year. So the fact that if you miss one, the likelihood of testing again is in the next 4 months. So they come to a point where they're not testing quite frequently, and that discourages them because they're like, oh, I was going so quick up until this point. Now I'm not going fast at all, and blah, 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 blah. And things that used to be fun and exciting are now every day, where it's like, oh, this is a front punch. I've done these before. Or, oh, this type of drill. I've done this type of drill before. Nothing is quote unquote new anymore. And when you kind of lose that this is new factor, it really messes with people's heads in terms of like, well, I'm not getting any better. If nothing is new or doesn't feel new, then it's not getting any better. And it's very difficult, obviously, for most people to see the growth within themselves. Some people see an overinflated sense of growth, but for most part, most people aren't going to recognize, oh, my kicks are a little higher. Or like, dang, my timing's getting a little better. And somebody else that will point it out to you, be like, hey, like your kicks are getting way higher. Like I remember when they were here, now they're there, all that stuff. So when that happens, you have to vary up your training, or it sounds silly and stupid and very simple, but you just keep coming to class. You keep coming to class, because if you keep putting one foot in front of the other, eventually whatever you're feeling ends up fading away or going away. So the easiest thing to do is to vary your training up. Maybe start doing weapons. Do something that stimulates that new fun factor again. Okay, so when you get to a point in your training where you're like, ooh, it's class, blah, 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 that's when you need to go up to your instructor and be like, hey, can I start a weapons form? Or hey, can I take extra lessons to learn grappling? Or hey, can I come in and help teach? You need to find something different to break up the mundane and normal. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's what I would do. Or the easy one is vary up your training. The hard one is to just keep training.
Right.
Which sounds weird to say, just keep training. But if something becomes a chore, it's tough to want to do that chore, even though it's the best thing to do. So, what are some things that you've done personally that's kind of helped you through your plateaus?
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned those two routes. Mix it up and put one foot in front of the other, because I was, for the longest time coming up through the ranks, I was put one foot in front of the other. I would show up, and I didn't really ever consider it a chore, but I would make sacrifices to be at class, or I'd be missing out on other things. Um, and really, I think that just goes to an underlying opinion or underlying attitude of society, is that things are always having to be exciting. But I remember very vividly showing up to class, and it's like, okay, I'm just gonna go through this class. I'm here. It's just like I'm gonna push through. I'm gonna get it done. And honestly, those are some of the classes where I've just worked the hardest. I I know there were some times where I was like, okay, if I can take away one thing from this class, I'm gonna be fine.
You
It
know,
you know, but there are, but I ended up just focusing on that one thing. If we learn something in class, if like a combo is delivered in a sparring class, and you're just trying to figure out, okay, what am I supposed to be doing here? Then if you're in, then really you can just practice what was taught in class, and then you realize how much improvement you need, and
yeah,
then your plateau's gone because now you're still climbing.
exactly. Because then all of a sudden you find something that you need to work on,
Hmm.
and for a lot of adults, that helps keep them motivated to training. That it's not good enough.
Hmm.
That's like, oh, well, it's something to work on. Okay, and that's the mindset you need to take. Not, all right, we got something to work on. Not like, oh God, we got something else to work
Uh,
on. Okay, even though it's the same phrase, how you take it will ultimately determine whether or not you're going to be successful at it or not. So, and that brings up a good point to where, as instructors, you need to make sure, or we need to make sure, that we have a high enough energy count for everybody, and to make sure that everybody comes in to make them feel special and thanking them for coming in. Because you never know when you have those students that are just like, God, I really don't want to be here, but I'm going to show up. So it's like, okay, make sure they feel special for showing up. Make sure you acknowledge them for showing up. Make sure you have a good class so they don't feel like they wasted them showing up. So yeah, it's a team effort at that point. You know, instructors need to make sure they're doing their part to make sure the students are feeling fulfilled and excited and something to work on. And it's the students' part to make sure they show up. So that those are some great ways to get through your training. Okay, or get through the hard parts or the plateaus of your training. Because no matter how long you do it, you're going to experience ups and downs.
mm,
You're going to experience like highs where you're like, I'm on top of the world and I love training and everything's sunshine and rainbows. And then you're going to experience times where like training sucks. I never want to do it. I'm always down in the dirt. Like I'm always getting beat up. Nothing's ever good enough. And then for the most part, you want to keep those waves very small. You want to keep them ripples. Don't create valleys, peaks and valleys. So that those are some great ways to endure the plateaus of training. So next question, our last question is, how do you get more out of your training? Because we always have students coming up to us and be like, hey, we're coming to class all the time, we're making our lessons. How do I get more out of my training? Well, the simple answer is to get more out of your training is you do more. Okay, you do more. Whether that would be weapons training, extra lessons, going to events, helping out teaching. If you want more out of your training, you got to put more into your training. So if you're doing the bare minimum, which is coming to class, then you're going to get minimal results. So it's like, are you practicing at home? Are you coming to everything that's being offered? You know, all that stuff. So if you want to get more out of your training, you got to put more into your training. That's the simplest answer we can give you. So what? How would you feel, or like, how would you deal with somebody asking to get more out of their training?
I would go along the same lines. I think that if you're feeling like you're in a great place and your training is going well, it's basically the same analogy of you put your own oxygen mask on. Now look around. Is there someone that might be struggling? Is there someone that you've made a connection with at class that you're friends with? Maybe you see them at school or something, and you're like, "Hey, I punch in for me," or "Let me punch in for you so you can practice your DMs." It's really just taking your training and applying it and helping other people. If you're further down the path, maybe you're a higher rank, I would say you see someone struggling with a form, that's a great time for you to practice that form with them.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because eventually you'll get to the point in your training where you realize that it's not about you, and it's about, for me, it's about giving back. I mean, I think we've discussed this in other episodes where I'm at that point in my training where it's like, yes, I want to learn new things, and I personally want to get better, but I personally get more enjoyment out of seeing other people get better. It's like, yes, I've gotten my black belts. I've been training for a long time. I've been doing a lot of things. And I obviously want to continue to improve, but my improvement pales in comparisons to seeing other people improve. Okay, that's what really kind of gets me excited about training is when I see somebody struggling with something for so long and all of a sudden they get it and you're like, oh, thank God they finally got it. Or like you see somebody that's been training for a while and things that were very difficult for them at one point, it's not hard at all.
Mhm.
Or the shy kid that never talks to anybody is now you're having to tell him to be quiet because he's talking so much.
Mhm.
Like that's how I get more out of my training at this point in the stage of my career. So, but I agree. It's that point to where are you trying to help other people? Like, because that will ultimately help you progress through your training as well. And it's interesting because I mean you see all the instructors as the quote unquote higher ranking students. And the truth of the matter is the instructors aren't any more special than any other student out there. The only difference is we're doing it more because we're teaching it. Okay. And the act of teaching makes you remember and improve your stuff exponentially because you're having to show somebody else. Okay. Because if you can explain to somebody why you're doing it and help them do it, well, that means you can do that same thing as well. So that's why everybody's like, why are the instructors only the higher ranks? Well, one, it's because they haven't quit.
Mhm.
And two, it's because they can explain and they have a deeper understanding of the art because they have to explain it and teach it to somebody else. Okay. If people didn't need instructors, they could just learn from videotapes. Okay. So it's that expertise that they've learned and gained through the act of teaching that ultimately helps them propel up higher into the ranks, not because they're anything quote unquote special. Okay. The only thing special is the fact that that's what they do for a living. Okay. So those are the three questions for this week's. If you guys have any questions you would like to answer or like us to answer on air, please feel free to leave them in the comments down below or email us at truetalktuesdays@gmail.com. And we would love to see some of the suggestions that you guys have, just for the simple fact that we're always talking to people that do karate and do martial arts and this and that. So we have kind of a skewed perspective on things. So I always like talking to people that don't train and having them ask us questions on why we do certain things and helping them understand why we do certain things. That's a pretty exciting opportunity for us to just kind of help spread the message of the benefits that we've experienced through our training and all that stuff. So, but yeah, those are the three questions. To kind of finish up, our theme for the month is respect.
Mhm.
So this month we're focusing on another rule, 7 rules of Bushido, and this month it is respect. So I kind of posed a question out there to everybody. What are we doing to show respect? Are we showing respect through kind words? Are we showing respect through actions? Are we showing respect through behavior? Like, how are we displaying and showing our respect to the people around us? I would like to kind of hear what everybody's thoughts are on that. So again, shoot us an email, drop us a comment, let us know how you are expressing and showing respect to the people around you. So when first kind of like shotgun type thinking, first thing you think of when you hear respect, what is that? What's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Bowing when you enter the dojo.
So it's like, yeah, bowing. You know, I think of things like, you know, I automatically think of elders. You know, respect your elders. Okay, so it's like, how do you respect your elders? Well, sometimes it's something as simple as listening to them. You know, helping them out if they need something. Don't let them ask you. Just do it. Okay, and if they do ask you, be happy and willing to do that for them. Okay, and that could be your parents, grandparents, the elderly couple you see on the street. You know, like never feel it's always the right time to do something good for someone else. Okay. So, for everybody out there, let's hear what your first reaction is when you hear the term respect. Okay. A lot of times, unfortunately, we're kind of living in a society of you need to respect me. You need to show me some respect. You know, all that kind of stuff. I don't want to say nonsense stuff. Simply, if you want respect, you got to give respect. Okay, so if you want somebody to respect you, well, show them respect. Are you respecting them?
Show them that you're respectful.
Yeah, exactly. So don't be those jerks out there that are like beating their chest and being like, "You got to show me my respect. I'm a man. You got to respect me." Well, are you showing them respect? Are you being respectful? Like, that's a good question. I don't know. Hopefully the answer is yes. Okay. So it's never too early, never too late to show somebody some respect. Okay. And if you want to get respect, give respect. Okay. But that's the show for us today. Again, feel free to follow us. And okay, just to preface, we really tried last week to get on iTunes. We spent like 2 hours. So Apple, if you're listening, like, dude, pull your stuff together, man. It's like pulling teeth to create a new profile on iTunes. You have
to go and buy a new phone just to get it.
Exactly. It's like I have an iPhone and an iTunes account, and we had it on my old laptop, and I obviously deleted it off the laptop, so we re-downloaded it, but it still won't let us create our own iTunes account for the podcast. So we are still working on it. We promise we're going to get it happen. At some point this year, we'll be on iTunes or the podcast for Apple, whatever it's called. But until then, feel free to follow us on Spotify, Amazon Music, and YouTube. So, again, thank you everybody for taking the time to listen to a couple of guys just jabber on about anything and everything. And I figure one person at a time, we can slowly start to make the world a better place and change the society we live in for the better. Mm-hmm. Just takes one change at a time. So it's that ripple effect. Let's throw some rocks in the water and let's create some big ripples. So again, thank you for taking the time to listen to us, and make sure to kick it back with us next time.
Kick it with us next time. Bye, everyone.